We're gonna get 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 5 steps closer to Alaska by Jim getting his bike that he rode from Brazil to Utah up and running. I asked him to go dig it out of the barn, so him and his wife went and dug it out of the barn. We're gonna bring it here, go through it, and yeah, I don't know what we're gonna have to do to it, but it's been sitting for about 9 years.
It's about damn time.
So I'm excited because once I started talking about this whole thing, taking the C60 to Alaska, Jim instantly jumped on board.
But I will do something if it helps someone else do nothing.
And said, you know what? I've got to ride my bike from Utah to Alaska, the same bike that he rode from Brazil to Utah. So he wants to finish the trip.
Never half-ass two things. Whole-ass one thing.
The same little enduro bike that he rode 14 years ago. Got a lot of work to do, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you go like and subscribe. Let's get after it. All right, Jim, what do we got in the back of your truck today?
Got the old Tornado in the back of my truck. Got her out of the barn yesterday. Dusted a few of the cobwebs off, and yeah, we're gonna drop it out. I found the extra side plastic that was missing. I found the battery that I bought for it 10 years ago. I'm sure it's still good. Yeah, we got a lot of rust on the chain. She barely even rolls. We'll drop it out, dump the fuel. Yeah, start picking through this thing, see if we can get her running. Hopefully it doesn't take 3 months like the C60 camper.
Well, this is supposed to be like less of a project, I think.
We're hoping this will be less of a project. Probably want to drain that carb before we crank on it.
So how many miles did you put on this?
This thing, I think I've probably put 20,000 on this thing.
In 9 months.
3 months. I actually had cops chase me on this thing. I was riding back to our house when we lived in Orem. I drove past the cop. I was going probably way too fast and obviously don't have an American license plate. He flipped around, I just went whoop, whoop, zipped down to our house, rode it around the back side of the house, into the basement and closed the door. And just as I got the door closed, I looked out like the window from the basement, and the cop was knocking on the door asking our roommate where the guy is on the motorcycle. The roommate's like, we don't ride motorcycles, what are you talking about?
No motorcycles here.
I had this thing inside of the basement. For those of you who didn't hear the story before, Diesel Dave, Nyan Alphin, and I bought 3 of these similar motorcycles in Brazil. And what, 12 years ago or so? 13 years ago? Bought them down there just to ride them around there. Long story short, we ended up riding them all the way back to Utah. It was 17 to 20,000 miles. Took us 3 months. Now the idea is to fix these up and ride them to Alaska this summer with Cole's C60 project. So we pull it out. Had the gas turned off, so hopefully the carburetor isn't just ruined. This poor old girl doesn't have a functioning starter. So when I was about halfway through Venezuela, the starter went out. So I had to push start it everywhere we went. Diesel Dave's bike blew up like 3 times. He went through several motors. The second time that it blew up, we were like between 2 cities, and we're like, okay, let's go back. We just spent 3 or 4 days sitting in a bike shop getting his bike rebuilt. And he's like, nope, you guys go ahead, I'm gonna go by myself. I'm like, how are you gonna go by yourself? He's like, well, I'll figure it out. I'm like, dude, we can't just leave you. He's like, I don't want you to come with me. I wanna go by myself. I'm like, well, we'll help you figure this out then. And he's like, we went to like a kind of a gas station-y looking thing, and he flagged down a trucker, and we lifted his bike into the back of a flatbed semi, and he just hitched a ride back to the last city and spent a week at a bike shop, at the same bike shop, getting his bike completely rebuilt again. So Nyan and I rode to the next beach town, and we just sat there, basically hung out in a hostel and trying to surf and have a good time. And then, yeah, it was at least a week, if not more, later, he came and met up with us. Yeah, we're gonna have to pull that shock out, huh? Ugh. Rear shock off of here. Come on. Oh boy. Look at that down there. And it is just absolutely froze up. Don't turn it all. Whoa! There it goes.
Just need some
Needs a little bit of
talking to.
A little bit of chatter time. I'm sure we're gonna need to open this thing all the way up. So back in 2009, I went to, I actually, believe it or not, have a business management degree. I'm an educated person, just not mechanically. I had a buddy in my business classes named Brian. He owns a company called Brian's Mobile. Super talented dude, super smart, but he has helped me fix a lot of these little or smaller motorcycles that I've had problems with. And he actually has a pretty popular YouTube channel, Brian's Mobile. Check him out. Go with Brian a call, see if he's still in the business. Last time I talked to Brian was probably 5 years ago. Hey, Brian's Mobile. Brother, man, doing pretty good. How you doing?
Good. How's your family and kids?
Yeah, I got 4 kids now. They're just growing like weeds. I was wondering if you would be willing to help me or go through a carburetor on this thing. But yeah.
Text you my address?
Yeah, text me your address, and yeah, maybe later in the week or next week, I'll coordinate with you and we'll bring this carb down and maybe we'll bring the whole bike down, I don't know. There it is. Brian's Mobile. Pretty solid contact there with my guy Brian. We're gonna take this down, probably take the whole bike down, to tell you the truth. All right, we finally made it down here to my buddy Brian's place. He runs Brian's Mobile down here in central Utah.
Welcome.
He's gonna help us rebuild this here carburetor. No, Brian, he's helped me do a bunch of bike service back in the day.
So we met at UVU.
Yep.
We were in classes there together. He brought a whole bunch of his friends from southern Utah, and I was impressed with the quality and character with all of them. He also filled me in on hunting in Corn Creek Canyon and whatnot by Kanosh. So
Had some good times in the days.
heck yeah. Well, let's get at it.
Here's the carb. Brian's gonna help us dig through this thing and help us figure out if we can revive this old sucker.
Unglue it. If you look closely, when gas gets old, it turns into varnish, and it's basically like glue. You know, like you got furniture varnish or some kind of something. It sets up solid. So we've got some special chemicals with toluene and whatnot that help to break that up, and will help us to get it apart.
So we're gonna learn something today.
We're gonna learn something.
All right, so the first thing we want to do is just make sure we got some good ventilation. We got a lot of square footage here to help soak this up. So we're just gonna give it a little spritz here and there, anywhere that we can get it in. See a little bit coming off, but look at the way this stuff just knocks it off. I mean, if I were to be selling some kind of ShamWow or something in chemical form, it would be this stuff. It works pretty good. When you're working on a Japanese bike especially, they have a different type of fastener system than we do. You'll notice that the screwdrivers have a unique grip on them. And when you look at the screws, there'll be a little dot on each of the screws. Even if it's from Brazil, you see that little dot right there underneath this crud. So if I hit it with the brush, you'll see it a little bit easier. All that means is that it's not the same shape as the screws that you're used to. If you use your typical Phillips size 2 on this, it'll just chew it up.
Strips it out, huh?
It sure does.
We found that the hard way.
How do you know, Jim?
We found that out the hard way. I had to tap him with a hammer to get him broke free. Yeah.
That'll help. You look in the bottom of the carburetor, and what we want to see is if there's any kind of flakes of rust or anything, and then of course just the color in general. On the phone we were talking about the gasket here. So this gasket is supposed to be round. This one's not going to be reusable just because it's so flat and varnished, but that should be standing up, and when you pull it off it should be round again. So that's something that we'll definitely want to do. We want to look at the shape of it, just like if you're studying a language or something like that. You kind of get an idea for the different shape of the carburetors and whatnot. This is the float of the carburetor. The needle and seat's in here. You see I've got a bunch of different picks and things. This one might be pressed. Nope, it's not pressed. So as we pull this out, your fuel goes from your tank down into here, and then it goes into your needle and seat. So this is called the seat down there. And then this is your needle. You can see there's kind of green. You have a lot of different kind of metals in a carburetor. You've got all kinds of copper and steel and magnesium. And when it's exposed to time and fuel and all that, it'll react to each other and it'll seize in. This screw, the reason why it was so hard to get out is this is steel, and then this is likely some kind of alloy or magnesium. And so those kind of rust and electrolyze and just kind of cold welds them together. So this is your wide open throttle circuit. It's your main one. This is your secondary. And then when you turn the side of the throttle, and when we get this off, you'll see there's a needle that goes in there. And then there's also the pilot stuff. You look in here, there's all these little holes across the front there. Those are for when you're just barely getting into the throttle and starting it. And they all kind of overlap. I've got this manual here to help explain or show with visuals by the pros. So you can see how these overlap. So fully closed throttle, you got your pilot screw, your slow jet, and then these two are both that same needle that you see here. One of the things that makes these manuals so valuable is you'll have a grid or a chart. So this is for Utah here, but you'll see these numbers. I want you to focus just on the main jet number. So that'd be like a 168, and that's a description of the size of the hole. One of the mistakes people do is they'll just use a screw or a drill bit or something to clear these out, and it just makes the hole bigger. So down here is your biggest size hole and your biggest number, 172. Up here is your smallest, it's a 160. So when you look at the temperature and the altitude, as you go up, you'll see that they get smaller and smaller till they get to here. That's because your atmospheric pressure and your density of air gets thinner the hotter it is and the higher it is. So one way to remember that is just imagine a sexy girl that's really tall and really lean leaning on a bike. So the hotter and the higher, the leaner, the lean her.
The hotter, the higher, the leaner, lean her.
The lean her, exactly. So that just what that means, leaner is a less amount of fuel, a smaller hole, and so that balances it. And the reason why we do that is a stoichiometric balance. You want to have a 14.7 to 1 air-fuel mixture. You always hear air-fuel, the air's first. So this is by weight. So if your air weighs 14.7 pounds, you're going to be using 1 pound of fuel. Now obviously those are kind of gross, big metrics, but with carburetors, you want to look at what altitude you're at to decide on what kind of jets you use and what kind of clip position you have on your needle. As the needle comes up, there's a straight section of the needle as you're about quarter throttle, and then the higher you get, the more tapered the section is. Yep. So that in mind, and as small as these holes are, and as skinny as that needle is, any little chunk of varnish or anything on it can really adversely affect the way that your bike's gonna run. With the main jet, you wanna get that one right first, which takes some trial and error. Most of your bikes that you use for racing will have a little plug to pull that off. These are more forgiving and more crude, you know, ingenious, but crude. So you don't have to do that quite so much. Just let that soak for a minute. You get into your secondary jet for like half throttle and quarter throttle. Just let that work on it for a minute. This is the bottom of where that needle is, or the needle is going to be on your main jet. So we'll see some more of that here in a minute. As I get in there, I'm pulling away layers of metal. I want to be hitting it with a solvent. You see all that green that came out from there? So that's from where it interfaces with the copper in the bottom here. So just chew on it a little bit at a time, move it, spray it, move it, spray it. I want you to hit that now, and remember how you could barely get it to move at all.
Oh yeah.
So it's working.
This thing was locked up.
The main thing is you need to be able to get fuel to come out of it. So I'm going to do this out of it and see if we can get, what we want to see is we want to see a bunch of fuel come out the bottom, and we want to see it come out the sides too after I ground it on the thing here. So we're going to try just out the bottom. That's a good sign. See it coming out the sides a little bit.
Oh yeah.
This stuff just rips. It's good stuff.
What is it?
Berryman B12 Chem Tool.
Okay.
And it's 50 state compliant, because if they didn't lobby and work to keep it compliant, I don't know how else you get this done. You know, especially whereas you have trouble getting parts.
Was mentioning the next step is the starter. Brian's got an extra 30 minutes here. He said he's got time to help us take a peek at it. He said there might just actually be dirty brushes in there. Like I said, it went out on me somewhere in Colombia, I think, and haven't messed with it since. So we're gonna open her up, see what it looks like, and
It'll be like a rocket bender or something.
be a godsend if this thing worked.
I like to get stuff out and then give up. I give up.
There it is.
It's okay to give up. You just gotta not be too early. I wasn't sure if it was him or the guy that we rode with worked for to begin with.
Paid 25 for it.
So there's your brushes. They're fine. It might be a starter switch. It might not even be the starter.
That would be sweet. It very well could be, because I crash this thing all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, this is hardly wore out at all. You don't need a starter. These brushes have lots of spring, lots of life left on them. They're still kind of square. Yeah, it ain't this, it's your switch. We know what we should have done first. We
Tried the switch?
We ain't got a battery, and a bunch of it's missing, so.
All that time pushing.
No, all that time I push started it, I could have just bypassed that switch.
Yeah, you send power to this, it should go. Normally that's what I'd do, is just do that, but I got a camera on me and I'm just feeling like being busy.
Yeah.
Sit back and let it set. I'll make this look easy.
You guys done it a time or two. All right, starter's tested, starter's good. So that means we've either got something in our starter switch right here that's no good, which is not ideal because that's probably really hard to find. Or we got a blown fuse or a bad solenoid right here, which is also a possibility.
Yep, that's your solenoid right there. These two posts,
Okay.
pull these back. If you were to take pliers or 2 screwdrivers and bridge it, it would send power directly from your battery to your starter and it would start. You could have been doing that.
Without the switch.
Yeah, bypass all that.
Man, I had all my old tractors, that's how I start them.
Yep.
So, if I would have only known. All right, there it is, the final product, a fresh carburetor. We appreciate Brian's help. I would also appreciate it if everyone would go like, follow, subscribe, comment on Brian's Mobile One YouTube channel. Let's build this guy back up. He had one of the most successful channels I've ever seen. Our new carb's gonna be sweet. We're gonna get this put back in after we're gonna do a few more things here. New chain, some other stuff, but we'll get this carb going in. Yeah, keep the Tornado build going. 2.5 months to Alaska. We'll see you there. Thanks, Brian.
My pleasure.
I'm trying to get into that one last hose clamp on that little expansion chamber and I can't quite. Oh, we got juice!
How many miles? How many
6
kilometers?
Currently, this hog is currently sitting at 69,000 kilometers. So I bought it used.
With how many?
I can't remember. I'll have to dig it up. I have pictures from along the trip. But yeah.
69,000
69,000 kilometers.
Do the...
No freaking way! All this time, I've been push starting this thing. And
I don't know, I fixed it, taking it apart and putting it back
taking
together.
the starter off was the trick. Whatever we did, whatever Brian did, because we pulled the starter off and it looked fine.
Probably need some fuel, right?
We need fuel, yeah. Sure like these, oh dang it! Oh!
She needed a bath.
Oh.
She needed a
I'll
bath.
tell you what, I did not need a bath. Now I have a freaking gasoline bath.
Dami Mas?
What?
Dami Mas?
Dame más gasolina. Yep.
That's too bad.
Get the fuel spill kit. All right. Everybody say a prayer.
Same prayers?
Say a prayer.
Fingers crossies?
Come on, sweetheart.
Need some star fluid.
No, need a little bit of juice. We got fresh fuel in it. We got carb cleaned. I mean, it's sputtering. It's trying to fire.
Let's test that spark. Oh, we
Something
do have
that's
spark.
grounded, but we've got great spark. So
Well, we should not be
We
worried
just,
about spark plug just yet.
we just wasted hours at several ridiculous parts stores looking for this spark plug that is
Still good.
still good, and it is really hard to find in our area anyway. I found one store that had one of these in Sacramento. So we're gonna put it back in and run it. Give it a shot. See if we can get this sucker to fire up.
Oh.
Like she never turned off. Freaking new day. Dude. Yeah, buddy.
Just like it did back in the day.
But yeah. Just like new.
Oh my gosh, we got her. Got her started.
Man, what a win.
Oh,
What a win. Hey,
that's a huge step in the right direction.
huge step. We're gonna button this sucker up, put a few plastics back on, and then start pulling off wheels and tires next time. Wheels, tires, sprockets, brakes. We better send a video to Brian. He's gonna love this. What else do we need to do? We need to do some front forks, new grips, stuff like that. That's all next time. But the good guys got to win today. We got the old Tornado running. She'll be Alaska ready by 4th of July. I guarantee it. Till next time.